Morant with a running start. It dunks! Oh my goodness! Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! Ja Morant, insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. And on today's episode, I'm joined by frequent guest Chris Herrington of the Daily Memphian. Chris, I'm not totally sure what today's episode is going to be about because I can't think of topics to talk about for the Grizzlies. But anyways, Chris, how are you doing? Where's your head at?
I'm doing well. I'm still in transition mode. I mean, yeah. They did just stop playing like 2 weeks ago, maybe, and the playoffs are still going on. And so,
yep.
I tend to, I know we're talking, but I tend to have more of a writer brain. And so, I wrote a column on the final media session, sort of about the core three, and then wrote a column on the coaching hire of Thomas Isolo. And now I'm in the middle of an annual exercise that I go through to transition from the season to the off season, which is I rank all the players, the incumbent players, and count them down from 18 to 1 in terms of, value going forward, sort of an expansion draft conceit. So as we speak here on Thursday, I think that's right.
It's a Thursday.
The first half of that has been published, which goes from 18 to 10. And I'm currently taking a little break from editing the second half of that, which will go from 9 to 1. So I'm still sort of in transition mode from the season to the off season. I don't know if I'm fully into the off season headspace yet.
Yeah. So a couple of things. First of all, good job on the Thomas Isolo pronunciation. I've experimented with like 5 or 6. I've done several. Right. I read the phonetic explanation, and even then I was like kind of confused by it because it said TWO, and I'm like, is that two or TWO? Because that's not your normal international phonetic.
What I'm determining is that there's a lot more acceptable wiggle room on the first name.
Okay.
And but on the second name is the E. Is what you emphasize.
I also knew that like you'd always do your ranking 1 through 18. I haven't seen what you've released so far. Can you just give me a little peek? Where does Zion Pullen come in?
Oh, I don't remember, but he's not 18. He's maybe 14. I don't have it.
Oh,
the main thing I wrote about him is he's a subject of great interest for the summer league team.
Yeah. I mean, so, all right. So that's a subject of great interest. My issue, which I just said, like coming up with topics, like, of course the season just ended, but I felt like I fell into a rut over the final month or two of the season where it's like, what else is there to say? We already said it. This is kind of what we feared might happen. And now it's all happening. Like the hiring of Isolo, like I don't have anything more to say than the brief 15-minute reaction I gave, where it's like, I don't know if it's a good idea. I think most people's conclusion was it doesn't seem like there's much he could have done to lose the job over his little test run at the end.
Right.
And so then I start thinking, all right, so what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to steal from Chris and like try to rank the trade value targets? Am I supposed to look ahead to the offseason? Because also normally in the offseason, wrap up the last season. And I might still do that. I might do my big stat spectacular, wrapping up all the fun sort of interesting stats I can find from last year. But like, there's not like a draft to prep for, because it's like the Grizzlies don't have a first round pick. There's not like, I'm having trouble coming up with fantasies of like, right. Oh, but we could do this. Here's how we could trade for Giannis, where I'm like, we can't trade for Giannis. Like, I don't see.
In the spirit of your year-end stat thing, since I just wrote this, I'll throw you a little Grizzly stat trivia. See if you can
give me some trivia on my own show so I can look terrible.
So Jaren Jackson, my favorite sort of Jaren Jackson specific conceit I came up with, which he missed this season, regretfully, is the 4x50. 50% from the floor, 50 threes, 50 steals, 50 blocks. He's done that. He's done that. He's done that a couple times. He just missed it this season because of the shooting percentage.
Yeah.
But he did have his 4th season, the base unicorn line of 100 threes, 100 blocks. He had his 4th one of those this season. There are only 3 other players in NBA history who have had at least 4 seasons of 100 threes plus 100 blocks.
Yeah.
Can you guess who they are?
All right. Brooke Lopez?
That is one of them. Good
All
job.
right, good. Has Porzingis been healthy enough to do it?
That is another. The third is the other one is an inactive player. And I'll give you another hint. The player is no longer playing basketball, a retired player.
Rafe LaFrentz.
That's a good guess, but no. And I'll give you one other hint, which won't work for you. But
okay,
the first time I wrote about Jaren Jackson Jr., I think after the Grizzlies drafted him, I was looking for the best player comp for Jaren.
Okay.
And it is this player. So pat myself on the back. The player I said he was most likely to be like in terms of, the kind of player he would be is this other player who's had 4, I think exactly 4 career 103, 100 block seasons, long retired at this point.
Wow. I'm not sure. I'm thinking of big men.
Yep.
Who obviously shoot, but I know a lot of the greats. I don't think you would have gone that big for a comparison when he's coming.
This player made, I think, 4 All-Star teams. So,
okay,
not an overwhelming like.
So not Mehmet Okur, who I believe only made. Did he make 1? Not is it Karolinko?
Rasheed Wallace.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
a good one. Congratulations, Jaren, for once again hitting a unique stat. Here's the unique stat. I was going back and listening to old episodes, not to boost my numbers. But I want to check. Check.
Every click counts.
Every click counts. No, there's the thing. All right. There's like the righteous outrage that I feel like fans feel sometimes. We are like, how could they do this one thing? It was clearly dumb. But then I like to go back and check my receipts because unfortunately I've released my public opinion for years and it's easy to check. Like, what did I think about this one thing? So I was going back to check the receipts and one stat I'd forgotten about. This is just something that just came up when I was listening to an episode after the loss to the Lakers 2 years ago. And one thing I'd forgotten about was Jaren Jackson Jr.'s impressive Bob Cousy tying bad streak of having consecutive road playoff games, shooting, I think it was under 33%. And he actually broke the record this year in that game 1, where I think it was 7 straight road games for Jaren in the playoffs.
You're not giving him play-in. I'm
not. No. Did I say postseason? Right. I meant playoffs. Yeah. I meant playoffs.
Playoffs.
Also, and of course, now the Grizzlies had this massive road losing streak in the playoffs going back several years. Anyways, no, but I also was looking at like there are some ugly receipts. Like, of course, like I listened to a lot of the end of season media availabilities, and my like caustic joke was, you could play back any of these things from any other offseason of the past couple of years. And I went back and watched like Zach Kleiman's 2022 media availability. And it's like, a lot of it's the same stuff where it's like, oh man, he talked in 2022. Zach Kleiman talked in 2022 about like the title window's open. Now is the time to strike. We don't know how long these windows say open. So first of all, in our preseason episode, Chris, we did one basically right before the season started. We did not think our title window was opened this season. We were sort of poking fun at the discussion that this is a championship level roster. Your joke was maybe in future seasons, like maybe this team 3 years from now, this roster will develop. And we didn't even know about Jaylen Wells back then.
Right.
But then we also said like, what's going to be a successful season for you? For the Grizzlies. And then we also tried to get in the brain of the front office and wondered what a successful season was going to be for them. How do you feel about the season now, looking back? Like, would you call this a successful season now that we've had a little bit of some distance?
I would say close, but not quite. I think 48 wins is pretty decent.
Yep.
I think the fact that the arc of the season bit downward, the fact that they just really struggled to beat other good teams in the West, I mean, obviously you have a coaching change in there.
Yeah.
You get swept in the first round. But I think they were real close to hitting the mark in terms of a successful season. Like if they went one or two more games in the regular season and now they're the 7 instead of the 8, and now like maybe you upset Houston or maybe you just like lose in 6 or 7 games. Like I don't think you're getting swept at that point. I think they were real close to being a 50-win team that was in a really competitive first-round playoff series. They did not do those two things, but they were very close to getting to those two things. And so I wouldn't call this a successful season, but I don't see it as some kind of disaster or some kind of train off the track situation either. And I think what you alluded to for the season was sort of my baseline. I want the organization to come out of this season feeling like, okay, we've gone through the detour and now we're back and now let's be serious because we have a chance to win, to really win.
Yeah.
I don't know if the organization feels that way. Like Zach Kleiman was very adamant about saying we're not close, which I think was partly like what he thought people wanted to hear from a PR perspective. But I actually think they are pretty close. Like I might feel better about the team than the team does. And maybe that's because my ultimate expectations are always a little bit lower. Like I'm not the like, are you going to have a parade down Bill Street guy? I just don't think that way. I think like I'm watching these second round playoff series and seeing competitive games and thinking, are the Grizzlies close to being in these? And I actually think they are.
Yeah. So you mentioned the train metaphor. You actually said that in the preseason where I think you wanted them to get the train back on the track. I think your thought was when you were trying to guess what the front office thought about this year's season, you were saying if they can get the train back on the track, which is make the playoffs, that at least to me, that on some sense, that's a successful season. And I think that's how they would view this season. I think both of us set like the standard. I don't want to call anything short of the second round a success, but I also said I'll be happy if they win, upper 40s in the regular season and make the playoffs.
One of the wild things about this season, is it so much does not feel this way to anyone. Yeah, they hit their over.
I know.
They hit the over.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I actually lost a little bit of money there, Chris. It came down to the final game, and they did hit the over. No, it's so weird because it's just a perspective where it's like if you took
what you're telling me is your bet got huff stuffed.
Yeah, I did get huff stuffed. Absolutely true. It was the only over under I missed that I actually placed money on. My thought was again, and it's funny because when I go back and listen to my receipts, so much of it, I'm like, you're telling me Ja Morant is going to play 60, 70 games, like he did not. And it's like, you're telling me my big question was like, who's going to hit threes on this team? Well, it turns out Jaylen Wells did. And they had this, they ended up again, 48 wins. It's good. 8 seed. Whoops. You said like, if they won a couple more were the 7 seed. Do you not think it would have been worse losing to the Rockets in 5 or 6? Because of the specifics of that matchup with having Dillon Brooks and Steven Adams on that team. And then we could be like weirdos like us could be like, hey, Dillon Brooks, Steven Adams, Kyle Anderson, and D'Anthony Melton have all been out of the first round of the playoffs since leaving our team. And we have not. Don't you think losing to the Rockets would have been worse than getting swept by the Thunder?
Not if it's 6 or 7.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I think winning some playoff games and getting a little bit deeper would have been better for the team.
Yeah. So now you point out maybe you're a little bit more optimistic, or
I just think they're closer to being a competitive playoff team, which has always been my competitive playoff.
So I'm there where I agree that we could have a Atlanta Hawks-esque run of like 8 years in the playoffs, but we never do anything, which is not really my goal. I think I've turned from thinking that this team is a couple moves here or there away from being an elite team to now being like, okay, we're just okay. And I don't know what the moves are that get us from okay into the conversation where we could actually realistically expect to make a conference finals. What do you think those things are?
What's the second best team in the West?
The second best team in the West. The Thunder.
So who are you saying is the best? If the Thunder's second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking the Nuggets. I was thinking the Nuggets and said Thunder. I think that
How far are the Grizzlies from the Nuggets team this season? And yeah, they got Jokic, but like,
you casually say, they got Jokic. I think the Grizzlies are not close to the Nuggets because they have Jokic.
Well, guess what? Both of those teams aren't going to be in the West Finals. Only one of them will.
I'm with you.
They're going to be playing Minnesota. They're going to be playing Golden State. I just don't think the idea we are out of the super team era. And so the idea that this Grizzlies roster construction is that far from being a team that can win playoff series and advance in the playoffs and I just don't think it's that far fetched. I really don't. I mean, we're about to have the Indiana Pacers in a conference finals for the second year in a row, maybe.
That if the Pacers make the conference finals, which right now they're up 2-0 on the Celtics as we record.
They made the conference finals last year.
I know. If they make it in consecutive years, I have to recalibrate my entire view of just the world. And I know they're in the Eastern Conference and it's a little bit easier, but if they beat if they beat the Cavs, I mean, wow. Oh, here's a fun one, Chris. I just found this up this morning because I feel like a lot of people are really into Aaron Nesmith, and I have a lot of text threads about how good Aaron Nesmith is.
I sent the dream is over text to someone a couple days ago about Aaron Nesmith. Yeah,
Aaron Nesmith over there on the Pacers making Luke Kennard money. Aaron Nesmith was drafted with the Grizzlies pick that the Grizzlies sent to the Celtics. Going back to the Jeff Green trade. I forgot that or didn't know that. That was the pick where it was supposed to convey in the Ja Morant year, but we jumped up and got Ja Morant, so it conveyed the next year. The Celtics got Aaron Nesmith. Then somehow the Celtics won the title last year, despite just basically getting fleeced in the Desmond Bane and Aaron Nesmith trades. And I know they got Malcolm Brogdon, but who really cares? It helped them get Drew and such. But anyways, no, the Pacers. All right. Going back to the Western Conference. I do think I would say consensus,
especially projected into next season, which is what we're talking about. I don't, other than the Thunder, I don't know that if any team is set up to be this towering inferno that you can't envision yourself being equal to. I just don't.
Right now I can't envision myself being equal to a Jokic team. I feel like the Timberwolves and the Rockets have passed the Grizzlies and definitely have a leg up. I mean, I think we're in that Lakers tier, and hopefully Doncic and LeBron don't get some easy help, although they probably will, you could see.
The Timberwolves were 2 games better than the Grizzlies this season.
The Timberwolves had a weird year.
Mike Conley's going to be they had a healthy year. It's what they had. They had an extremely healthy year all season. Mike Conley's now another year older. Nicole Alexander-Walker's going to be a free agent.
Yeah.
Julius Randle is got this player option. The Grizzlies, and I feel like Pollyannish about this, but I just see what's in front of my face. They won 48 games despite, Ja missing all this time and then the late season injuries and all this other stuff. They were starting 2 rookies most of the season. I actually do think they sort of have, haphazardly wound their way to a pretty good group of secondary guys. It's just like they were all in their first year on NBA rosters this season, meaning Edey, Pippen, and Wells, I think in that order of importance. And I think those guys are really good fits as secondary guys alongside the core 3. And I still believe in Vince Williams is one of those guys too. And so I just don't, again, maybe it's a difference of what you consider successful, but to me, 50 wins and competitive playoff stuff is successful. And I just don't think this roster is at all far from that. Even remotely far.
So I agree with you that this team right now, I would top them out near 50 wins, but competitive playoffs, of course. I think they're still young enough and well set up with a deep enough squad, even if I don't trust those guys in the playoffs to compete in the regular season. But to me, that is still moving the goalposts of the dreams of 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
It's not moving my goalposts. I've never been I just don't think in terms of winning the title unless you do have LeBron James or Nikola Jokic on your roster.
So I'm not saying I'm not a title or bust person. My goals are that you have a competitive winning team. But when you think about the 2022 offseason where you had cap space and you had this young core and you had these supporting pieces and you had multiple first round picks coming in and you're like, man, we can put together this incredible run, and to not have won a playoff series since then and to feel further from the title than I did 3 years ago.
Well,
I can no longer be like, oh, this is cool.
No, I think all that's fair. I don't think they handled everything the best way, and obviously Ja Morant went on a walkabout, and that's been the biggest problem.
Uh-huh.
And so like all that's true, but like I don't know. I'm trying to get to like what's the alternative here? If it's just going to be like this team's not good enough, so are we blowing it up? Like what are we doing here? You know?
Well, you speak to a good point there. There is no alternative. That's where I have trouble coming up with podcast topics. Because I think so many of the like maybe low hanging fruit of like, do the Grizzlies move on from one of their big three? It's like, no. Well, what are you going to do? Like this is.
I think the answer there is at least a maybe, and that's the intriguing thing going into the summer, and that's what I wrote about coming out of the final media session. I thought it was notable that Zach Kleiman did not pound the table and said, yes, we can win a title with Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, and Desmond Bane as our core, and he did not commit to bringing them all back. I do think they're likely to bring all three back.
Yeah.
But I think the door is open to not bringing all three back.
Let's talk about that door being open right after this short break. All right, so if we concede that now for the first time, there's a possibility that Zach Kleiman would consider breaking up the big three, I think... Don't we all agree? That doesn't mean trading Ja Morant. You're not going to trade Ja Morant. He's too important to the bottom line. And also, I think his value actually isn't that high for other teams to acquire him. What do you think about that?
This is my opinion, and that opinion has been strengthened, I would say, in recent days. There's a lot of chatter nationally about, could Ja Morant be on the move? Like people are there's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be more of that. My best sense is that I don't think either party wants that. I don't think Ja Morant's going to say trade me, and I don't think the Grizzlies are going to want to trade Ja Morant, and so I don't think that's going to happen. And partly for the reasons you say, I think his whatever diminishment there's been in sort of what he is likely to be on the court, right?
Yeah.
The value proposition of Ja Morant on your basketball team is still greater right now than the value proposition of Ja Morant on the trade market. And so, and that's even setting aside what he means in terms of like the star power and all of that. So I think Ja Morant's going to be back, and I think the Thomas Isolo hire in some ways sort of ratifies that, or not ratifies it, but sort of underscores that, because he is very much thinking about building his team around Ja Morant as the fulcrum, and you saw that after he became the head coach.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that let's remember, everyone, that in like 2020, you wouldn't see a Grizzlies shirt or jersey anywhere in the world outside of Memphis, Tennessee. Basically, you might see a Mike Bibby throwback at like Summer League,
at Coachella.
Like, you wouldn't see a Grizzlies thing anywhere. And then after that, it's like, wow, I'm watching Champions League soccer. Someone's wearing a Ja Morant jersey in the crowd. And then if you go anywhere around the NBA, of course, his jersey is everywhere. Grizzly stuff is everywhere now because of that. So, all right, we're not trading Ja, and I don't think they're considering it. I would say Jaren they're not considering, because you could argue he's their most important player. So do you think there's a chance Jaren could be moved ahead of his upcoming free agency?
I think I don't. Is there? Are you saying there's a chance? I mean, there's always a chance. I don't think that's I don't think that's a likely scenario. I'll be interested to see if he. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to just miss all NBA. I think he's going to be the 16th guy in a
sure.
15, and a 15.
Yeah.
If he does make all NBA, like, to me, it's a real question of, are you willing to give him a full supermax? My hope would be he's willing to sign for less than a full supermax, even if he qualifies for a supermax. Now, the only guy who's ever done that is Rudy Gobert. Qualified for the whole thing and signed for less than the whole thing. But but if it comes to that, I think that's a real question. Do you really want to give Jaren Jackson that deal is not meant for the Jaren Jacksons of the world, as good as he is. So I think that's a real question. But I think the team, I think they want to continue to be in the Jaren Jackson Jr. business. I think they're going to make that happen this summer. And that's why, to me, it sort of comes down to Bane as a sort of a real question.
Yeah. Okay. So Bane, I don't think, let's say, like, I don't understand what trading Bane would necessarily get you, other than, are we talking about moving him to pick up future assets? Like, the only way I would be comfortable trading Bane is if I bring back a similarly skilled player who maybe plays who's taller, who plays small forward, basically.
Well, I think size is a key thing here. I've worked through the exercise on all three of these guys, and I don't see a Bane trade that makes you better, and I think they're not looking to get worse. So that's why I think the most likely scenario is all three are back. But
yeah,
if you're going to re-sign Jaren this summer on some kind of massive deal or or giving him an extension, that's going to make Bane your third highest paid player.
Yeah.
Average $40 million a year as your third highest paid player and your third option, your third most important player too. Can you construct the kind of team you want to construct with that player making that level of salary figure? And if not, is there a way to break that salary up in a way that would lead to a better overall roster? If so, I think it is a move to get bigger along the perimeter, to get better defensively, with the idea that, Zach Edey's a growth stock as a scorer. Scottie Pippen's going to be a growth stock as a scorer under Isolo. If you have better, more consistently good perimeter defense in the backcourt, maybe Santi Aldama is a growth stock as a scorer and plays more small forward. If you're having better defense at the two, is there a way to reorient your team that you're bigger, you're better defensively, you're playing a different style? And as good as Bane is, and he's very good on and off the floor, is that a $40 million player as a single position sub all-star scoring guard, right?
Yeah.
But that's the exact same that I think limits his trade value, right? He is what I call Bane in my article, my column at the end of the season, is that he is a high level version of a low value player, in the sense that the single position scoring guard is, I think, the least valuable player type in the league. And so that's why you limit I should know what you're getting back in a trade that's a lateral move, not a step back future assets move, right? Like are you trading him for like RJ Barrett and something else? Does that make you better? Ew. Right. Like, to me, it's that kind of stuff. I don't think you're getting commensurate talent back.
Yeah. So my thing with Bane is, we get hung up on the salary number, where, you could say it's a lot, but I also look at I can't remember the exact stat. It's something in this general vicinity. Basically, any player in the NBA who, I think it was averaged 18 points per game and had an effective field goal percentage, what Desmond Bane had, is a max player, except for Austin Reeves. Like, Austin Reeves was the one guy who was not getting paid. So my thought is, guys who can hit high volume 3-pointers on a really high percentage, they just get paid. And it's the thing that we talked as Grizzlies fans forever about needing. We got to have a shooter. We got to have a scorer. And like, finally having him, I feel myself in no rush, and thinking they would be in no rush to try to break that up. And also, when you think about that one salary figure, you have to, again, compile the whole team. If you're carrying 5 minimum guys, I can pretend Desmond Bane is making less. This
is the thing. This is the reason why you're speculating and hitting on a lot of these guys. Not all of them, but an awful lot of them. This is the reason you're speculating on multi-year contracts for Scottie Pippen, for Jaylen Wells, for Vince Williams, for Gigi Jackson, for Jay Huff. You start just stacking these guys up on these multi-year deals, and you hope you hit on enough of them that you can fill out a competitive rotation with guys like that allow. They're going to, next season, they're going to have Zach Edey, Scottie Pippen, Jaylen Wells, and Vince Williams, all four combined for like $12 million.
And Cam Spencer, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking about like my actual like 9-man rotation, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Cam Spencer's going to be the next one of these, right?
Right.
They're gonna do that this summer to some degree or another. Whether they'll get him on that the same kind of 3 or 4 year deal with the team options. That's less certain because if they use their cap space to re-sign Jaren, that's going to complicate doing that kind of deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's going to be on the main roster. But the reason you stack those guys up is so you can afford to pay like Desmond Bane $40 million, right? Yeah. So I agree. That's why to me, I'm still in the transition mode. I don't have like my big plan I'm pounding the table with that the Grizzlies should do, but my general instinct is like you keep these guys it's not overhaul, it's a tweak. I think you tweak around the edges of what you already have.
Well, so that's where for the first time, this is, and maybe this is a sign of maturity, Chris. For the first time this offseason, I'm looking at the Grizzlies roster and I'm like, I don't think I do anything. I think I just kind of sit, wait, and see how good we are next year. See if Gigi Jackson is back, if Vince Williams is back, if Edey's good, if Wells is good.
I believe next season's trade deadline is more likely to be like a crossroads for the Grizzlies than this summer. I do believe that. I think if one of the big three gets broken up in the next year, I think it's more likely to happen at next season's trade deadline if the season's not going well than it is this summer. And I think they really, again, they've stumbled their way through it a little bit, but like, I think they're really interested to see what like Zach Edey's going to look like in year 2 and Scottie Pippen in year 2 on a main roster, Jalen Wells in year 2. I think Jalen Wells sort of is what he is. I'm not as big on that, but I think Vince Williams, can bounce back in a major way. And then like, I don't know, who knows about Gigi, who knows about, do they do something with whatever exception they have? I think the trade route is tough if you're not breaking up the big three, unless there's a sign and trade with Santi Aldama, which I would not roll out by any means. Yeah.
The Santi question's hard and we don't have really time to get into it on today's episode. I will say if I had to come up with Bane trades, I've started trying to think up things. Mostly the players we want are all untouchable, and that's just how the NBA sort of works. Like you could imagine, like if you attached multiple picks, could you trade Desmond Bane to the Magic for like a Franz Wagner if they just decide we got to have more scoring out there? But again, Franz Wagner is untouchable to Magic fans and probably to the organization, but you just say, hey guys, you have too many bigs. You need some small guys. I was wondering, like, would the Rockets be interested? But also, what kind of
for what though? You're not getting it. You're talking about Jalen Green.
I'm talking about like a Jabari Smith and Jalen Green. And
yeah, no, that's on my list. My brainstorm list. Jalen Green is one of the guys on.
But I would say
I don't love Jalen Green, but there's upside there.
But I would also say, not that Steven Adams is necessarily going back to the Rockets, but what kind of stomach do people have for like a Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, David Roddy's there too on a 2-way, Steven Adams. I was like wondering, watching the Pistons play, thinking like he would be good on the Pistons, and then wondering Jaden Ivey plus do the Pistons throw in something, picks or something? But then like John and Jaden Ivey together is not.
Jaden Ivey and Scottie Pippen, who they're high on. Now you got 3 of these guys. And I think Isolo likes those kind of guards, but you don't need 3 of them. I
can't get in the position where I'm appreciative of Scottie Pippen Jr. and I was impressed by Scottie Pippen Jr., but I cannot get in the headspace where I'm excited about Scottie Pippen Jr. Like, oh, we got to make space for Scottie next season. I am not there.
I don't think you have to make space for him. I think the space is already there. I think I'm pretty high on him.
Yeah.
I think he is locked into that third guard role, especially with Isolo coaching. And I think in that role, I think he is a sneaky 6th man of the year candidate next season. Because you look at the kind of guys who are in that mix. Talking about Peyton Pritchard, Malik Beasley, Ty Jerome. Whom else am I forgetting that was in that mix this season? There's another guy like that. Those kind of guys who come off the bench and like score, 13, 14 points a game and finish some games. And I think Pippen could be, and you factor in the defense, he can take on high level defensive assignments in a way that a lot of guys like that can't.
Yeah.
I think Pippen is going to be a high level reserve. He has a chance to be a very high level reserve next season.
Yeah. So if the Grizzlies win 64 games, he'll be definitely top 3 6th man of the year, like Ty Jerome and Peyton Pritchard. Well, Chris, I think we can end.
This is on a $2 million contract. To me, like
again,
like this is a great thing to have a guy.
1 year ago, we were high-fiving and slapping each other's butts that Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams Jr. were on these $2 million contracts. And like you fast forward a year and it's like, oh, maybe the undrafted guy / the two-way player / the second round pick, maybe he's actually not as good as he looked in these weird circumstances.
I think Vince is fine. I think Vince was just hurt. The Gigi thing, I got no idea. But I think I'm going to stick on this island and tell you this. Yeah. Vince Williams will be better next season than Jaylen Wells.
Oh, I hope so. I'm not sure how I feel about Vince's final game performance tease. His too little too late in game 4. Like, hey, Vince Williams played well. We were waiting for 86 games, 88 games for Vince Williams to show up. There's always next year. Anyways, if you guys want more stuff from Chris, go get it at the Daily Memphian. If you want more from me, you can join up at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. By the way, thank you to Ken Komodo, Jacob Schwiegel, and Morgan Spencer for recently signing up for the Patreon. Appreciate you guys. Patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon. Go Grizz.